Hello family, this is African Esquire TV. I'm your host Tony Cherie, coming to you with different topics from around the African diaspora and of course coming from the continent of Africa. This video I'm going to talk about the arrest of the NFAC leader, Grandmaster Jay, who is someone who has been a hot topic inside of the news, been a hot topic among the YouTube sphere, because a lot of people don't know what to make of him. A lot of people have put out allegations of him being an agent. I early on said that I don't appreciate those types of allegations against people whenever they're actually doing things without there being any proof. And I say this because even if someone is uncovered to be an agent, understand that that could also be someone who is not an agent, and you could possibly be demonizing someone that's trying to further African liberation. And in that case, understand that you are being counter-revolutionary. Now, if someone is an agent and you have evidence, by all means, out that person to the world. But understand, being an agent entails certain things. Being an agent entails that you are working for the United States government. And if there's a movement for the people, you are supposedly trying to infiltrate that movement and trying to derail any types of progress towards something that the United States government has demonized as a threat to its power. Now, with the NFAC, I said previously, agent behavior is not building a Black militia. Agent behavior is maybe infiltrating a Black militia, but not building a Black militia. That's just not something that the United States government has ever once said, that we are going to make an agenda of ourselves, that we want to see Black people armed. So when you see someone building a Black militia, encouraging people to be armed, going to protest, encouraging people to protect themselves, and he's built this movement behind it, logic to me says that that person cannot be an agent because the United States government would not want that to happen. So that was my stance, and a lot of people still feel negative ways against him. But new news has come out that he has been arrested and faces 20 years in prison on federal charges. Now, to me, when I hear this tells me that he definitely was not an agent, but still some people think that this is proof that he's an agent, which is why I feel like we have to have a forum where we actually discuss past agents who we knew were agents and came out to be agents, and what happened to them and how did the government deal with them, because charging them for pointing a gun at them and giving them 20 years in prison, probably not the most agent-like thing for the government to do, right? So let's go to the story though. It says John Fitzgerald Johnson, better known as Grandmaster Jay, he was arrested and charged with pointing a rifle at federal agents in Louisville. And I remember this because he was protesting the death of Breonna Taylor. Now, it says that he was arrested on Thursday and booked on federal charges. And it says that the incident took place all the way back in September 4th, when Johnson and his NFAC gathered to protest against the killing of Louisville, Kentucky resident Breonna Taylor in a police raid. While Taylor was fatally shot in March, protests escalated following the May death of George Floyd in Minnesota and a subsequent wave of Black Lives Matter riots across the U.S. According to the affidavit, Johnson pointed his rifle in the direction of Louisville PD officer, who was apparently a federal deputy, looking over the crowd of protesters from the rooftops of a nearby building. I don't know if you guys seen the pictures. I seen the ones that were listed in the court documents. I don't see him pointing something. If anything, it looks like pointing the rifle up into the air, which my understanding in an open carry state is something that you do to show that you're not trying to shoot someone. But still, he got arrested for this. It says, though heavily armed, the NFAC has not actually committed any acts of violence. That's not true. The act of violence to the government is arming Africans. That's an act of violence. And you've seen a lot of people who have not actually pulled a trigger or not incited people to pull a trigger be arrested like they were committing acts of violence, because to the government, that is just as bad as actually acting on it when it comes to African people.
Williams voluntarily returned from self-exile today and immediately was arrested as a fugitive.
The reality is that America is not God, America is not the end of the earth, and it doesn't matter what the Americans think. In the final analysis, the truth will come out. while I advocated violent self-defense, because I don't think you can really have a defense against violent racists and against terrorists unless you're prepared to meet violence with violence.
On one occasion at the end of July, there was supposedly a group who accidentally shot himself. And I remember hearing about that, although I've heard it wasn't true, but I don't know the facts on that personally. He has no prior convictions in Johnson. He has no prior convictions. He served in the U.S. military in the 1990s. He's a black separatist, and he wants the U.S. to give us our land here so that we can go and set up our own government in the whole 9 yards, essentially self-determination. His long-term goal is, however, an exodus to Africa to establish our own destiny and build our own nation and get a seat at the UN just like everyone else. All right, so what do I think about this? Well, number one, there's a few things that are red flags that show me that this is someone who's being targeted by the US government, whether you guys like it or not. Number one, this happened back in September, okay? Back in September, and he's just not being arrested. The date of the article, I believe it was a couple weeks ago. December 4th is the date of the article. So around that time, he was just arrested. That's obviously something that means that there was a decision made behind closed doors where it was discussed. And in my opinion, what was probably being discussed is, all right, this guy is being too dangerous out here. We need to talk about what we can get him on. And you have people going through different things that the NFAC has done, and they say, okay, this looks like something we could actually pin charges on him for. And they come to the conclusion, okay, let's go this way. That's what that looks like to me, the fact that it was so long ago and it was not acted upon until recently. It's also interesting that the officers who were supposedly pointed out by a gun it says that they were federally deputized. So these were not, people who were known to be federal officers. It's someone who supposedly came out after the fact and say, hey, I'm a federal officer and this happened to me, right? That's another red flag because number one, how do you even prove that? That's something that would be within the ranks of the United States. And obviously that's something that will have to come out in court. But this is something that they are alleging, okay? This to me just says all over it that this is the government trying to derail him. And it's sad that a lot of our people were so caught into the debate between agent or no agent that we don't see that someone who actually tried to build an authentic movement to do what a lot of us have been calling to do, arm ourselves, is now being penalized. Not just penalized, he's being martyred essentially for us. And a lot of us are more concerned with debating whether or not he was an agent than actually trying to get truth out of the matter. Again, I want to emphasize, we have to know what we're saying when we're calling someone an agent. You're saying this person is furthering the interests of the white supremacist government. I can tell you agents in the past because they were trying to derail Black movements, not build Black movements. And we have to be careful about this because I promise you, more and more as our people move into becoming more conscious, you're going to see a lot of people come out who are trying to do things authentically. And maybe you don't like their past history, or maybe you don't like the way that they move. But if you stand and say that that person is an agent when this person is actually not, you again are being counter-revolutionary. And the other question that you have to ask is when you don't have proof of that and you're standing back and calling someone something without actually being a set of an organization or building a movement yourself, then you're very anti-revolutionary because you're not doing anything for the revolution, but even someone who's doing something, you're trying to speak against it. So our people have to be clear where we stand. We have to be clear on what we want. And when people actually do come out and do things for us and we don't have proof that they're an agent, we have to zip it. Again, it's sad that I honestly think that this guy is being targeted by the government, but unfortunately, some of us are so wrapped in our minds, we're not going to come out for him. And it's unfortunate, but this is the reality that we live in with this social media activism, because some of you believe the truth on Twitter before you see it with your own eyes. You'll believe the truth because your favorite person on Facebook or Twitter said something about someone. You'll believe that quicker than you'll actually believe anything that is of substance. This guy is facing 20 years in jail, and you still have people saying, oh, he's an agent, he's an agent. I even seen someone on my channel saying, oh, you were wrong, this proves it. How does this prove it? Make common sense. This is the thing that we have to really deal with the quote unquote conscious community, is that let's make sense out of these things that we're saying because they're not adding up. if this person is for the government and he was arrested and facing 20 years, the logical thing is for someone to be inside of a federal prison is that he has no incentive to protect his cover. So what would he do? He would out the government, right? Not go forth and face 20 years in prison and possibly lose 20 years of his life. So I just wanted to put this out there. I'm really, hoping and praying for the best for him and for the NFAC to rally around him and those same people who were championing them and calling them to their cities and trying to work with them. Y'all need to, organize, because if he's really facing these charges and facing possibly being put in prison for 20 years for simply trying to arm Black people, then understand this is a repeat of history. We have many freedom fighters who are political prisoners, and this would be just another political prisoner, but in a modern day context. So that's all I have. I will see you guys in the next video.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I love y'all. Yeah, I'm adapting. Bring me my backpack from the car.